Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stocker Team, the Investors Channel. On this episode, we'll be talking about one of the most awaited, talked about, or perhaps the biggest IPO, initial public offering, that will ever happen on Wall Street. It is none other than OpenAI's IPO. OpenAI's IPO has now been rumored or reportedly been planned and is in the works to either happen early next year or late next year. But with what is going on, OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, Sora, and every other LLM that is actually changing the sector or the global economy as per artificial intelligence, is planning to go on an IPO. So as an investor, what exactly should you actually have in mind? This IPO hasn't been officially confirmed, but should it be confirmed by OpenAI, what exactly do you need to know about OpenAI as a company, as a business? What exactly is the business model? Is ChatGPT really a successful business as per revenue, as per cost and operation, and so many other things that you need to consider as an investor? And of course, every information shared on this channel and this episode is for information and education purpose only. Do your due diligence or consult a financial advisor before making any decision. And of course, this episode is proudly presented by stockerteam.com, the website for retail investors to get guidance, coaching, and build long-term and sustainable portfolio. So let's jump right in. So OpenAI has now been reported to be planning to go on an initial public offering. As a matter of fact, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, actually hinted that that's the only path for the company to actually take, especially given the dream and the aspiration of the company to be the most sought after and the largest, artificial intelligence company when it comes to large language model, which everybody actually knows, ChatGPT, which actually changed everything, and the entire AI ecosystem is coming on board to actually innovate more. As you can see, Sora, which is what you can see in front of you, is one of the most cutting edge, video generation platform from OpenAI, and this will be part of why the company now sees a pathway to becoming a public company. But should OpenAI become a public company, what should you expect as an investor? What exactly is OpenAI about as a business, not just the name, the ChatGPT, and all the buzz and everything that you're actually excited about? Is this business really profitable? Is this a business you should be part of? Should you actually be waiting for this company to list, and after maybe 2 to 3 quarters down the line, the stock will actually pull back? Or perhaps this is likely to be the biggest IPO because the valuation is being said to be about 1 trillion. So that's what we are looking at, and we'll be jumping into the details of the IPO right away. So before we go into the details of what exactly you need to actually look out for as an investor before planning to take part or invest in OpenAI when it goes public, when this news actually broke, there were a few pointers to the fact that this might actually be the biggest IPO in the history of mankind on Wall Street globally. The IPO is said to be going, the company might go for a valuation of about $1 trillion. Of course, according to Reuters, this is not confirmed yet, but with the last post-money valuation for OpenAI, the company was already being valued at over $500 billion. So as at the last time they actually raised some funds and they invested in the likes of AMD, they did a lot of deals, with so many other chip makers like the investment from Nvidia and all that. So OpenAI might actually be going towards 1 trillion, even if it doesn't necessarily meet the 1 trillion mark. This could be about 800 to 900 billion valuation. That will actually place OpenAI exactly immediately into the league of the Magnificent Seven companies. The Magnificent Seven companies are basically the mega tech companies: the Apple, the Nvidia, Amazon, Google, and also and also Microsoft. And these companies have a minimum of a trillion valuation. OpenAI could actually, be admitted directly into the Magnificent Seven to make it Magnificent Eight. But is this really sustainable for a company that is not yet profitable, that is not yet showing so much proof as to whether the huge investment going into this business will be profitable? But it is yet to be seen. And part of the preliminary information that we're getting is that OpenAI will be raising about $60 billion on that IPO. At that valuation close to about 1 trillion. Although the CFO is actually saying they are still not going to rush into it, but if you look at what the CEO said, it is actually really something they are looking out for, because you want to actually strike when the iron is hot, and OpenAI would not want the AI enthusiasm to actually die before they actually hit the market. So if you look at the major investors in OpenAI, SoftBank, Thrive Capital, Abu Dhabi's MGX, now, but at the end of the day, OpenAI is still very, very much controlled by the OpenAI Foundation. Microsoft has invested about $13 billion in the company, and they have about 27% of the company itself. So there is a difference between OpenAI and a typical traditional company that is operating as a private entity. And I'm going to explain that in the 5 things investors actually need to be aware of about the OpenAI IPO when this hits the tape, when the company actually finally announced that they'll be going on this IPO. What exactly should you be having at the back of your mind? What are the pointers and the indicators that you actually need to do your due diligence with? I'm going to actually speak more on that. Let's jump right into that. So the first thing investors actually need to actually be aware of is basically the structure of this business. If you look at the corporate structure of OpenAI, like I said, it's not like the traditional company that you are used to. That it's just a private company. They have shareholders, they have corporate investors, they might have public investors, but OpenAI is a bit different. OpenAI Foundation and the commercial arm of OpenAI, which is called OpenAI Group PBC, which is Public Benefit Corporation. OpenAI Foundation actually has about 20% ish, 20% stake in that in OpenAI itself. And at the end of the day, OpenAI Foundation has other responsibilities that they perform, other things they need to actually do to make sure OpenAI's technology is for the benefit and the purpose and also the good of humankind. So OpenAI is not necessarily going to be operating as a full-fledged commercial entity without some guardrails, especially because the technology that they hold, the ChatGPT LLM and the code and the actual intellectual property they own, it's not just borderline very, very sensitive. It's also very, very, very confidential, and you need that kind of foundation to actually make sure there's a guardrail in terms of regulation, in terms of policies, in terms of privacy, in terms of actually how the company should use that technology responsibly. So that's exactly one thing. OpenAI is not going to have that carte blanche to actually do whatever they want to do, to actually maybe innovate the any way they actually want to actually innovate, especially reacting to the competition or doing anything just the way they want it to actually go. So bear that in mind as one of the pointers. Secondly, there is a huge cost of running this business, and that's most of the worries of a whole lot of investors who have actually watched on the sidelines how OpenAI kept raising funds on funds, and that seems to be more or less like an unending exercise. At the last count, OpenAI has raised at least more than 200 billion in the last 2 to 3 years, and we actually need to actually see is this going to be very, very sustainable? So, for instance, the cost of running this business, the inferencing cost, which actually gobs a lot of cloud compute, cloud demands, the capex, which is capital expenditure, data center chips, networking, storage, a whole lot of these things actually gobs a lot of money. So for every query that people actually do on ChatGPT, either on the consumer level or on the enterprise level, which is the tokens, a whole lot of millions of dollars is being burnt, perhaps maybe in every 1 hour. So OpenAI actually gobs a lot of money, and this major cost overhang could actually affect the profitability of the company, how the company is actually being able to deliver value to shareholders, or even remain as a sustainable business. Another thing I actually also want to talk about is the business model. The business model of OpenAI seems to be a bit more diversified, at least with what we can see now. The API business, which is the business or the enterprise level, they actually pay OpenAI a whole lot of money to use OpenAI's large language model, which is not just the ChatGPT that you and I we are used to. A lot of companies actually use the back-end code to actually run and orchestrate and actually embed AI into their workflows, use AI to build new applications, use AI to transform their business. So at the end of the day, you actually want to see that this business is getting much more revenue, not just from from the subscription, which is a $20 subscription. If you can also see Sora, which is going to be one of the most innovative business segment for OpenAI, is going to be very, very, very useful to the likes of Netflix, the movie and content producers in Hollywood, a whole lot of companies, creative companies, will actually be using Sora a lot, and that will actually generate much more money for OpenAI. Also, at the government level, a whole lot of government, public institutions will actually also do business with OpenAI, because OpenAI's large language model is also being deployed at the government level, at the defense level, and perhaps OpenAI might also be limited to the kind of companies or even public institutions they can work with outside of the US, outside of the Western Europe, or allies of the US. And that's another thing to actually have in mind. So OpenAI might not necessarily allow its large language model to be used, in places that are not as friendly to the US as you might actually think of. So the risk factors for me are revenue retention, competition, from even Microsoft. Microsoft has its own Microsoft Copilot, which is not necessarily directly competing with ChatGPT, but it's actually competing with ChatGPT on the enterprise level. Compute, supply chain risk, which we've seen what the US is doing with China, trying to negotiate rare earth minerals that is used in making some of these very, very powerful chips that the likes of Nvidia actually sell to OpenAI to actually run AI compute. Also execution risk, a whole lot of challenges. You still have ChatGPT, you still have the LLM not reaching AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. So you still see a lot of errors, you still see a lot of hallucination from the large language model, from ChatGPT itself, even on the consumer level. So the trust still needs to be built in. How will OpenAI get the model to actually get to a level where the error margin is as small as possible, or as thin as possible? That's something we need to actually bear in mind. So, because if this company comes to the public market, you also want to look at how will this company actually manage a lot of regulatory oversight, a lot of regulatory overhang that is ahead of the company. Another thing I also want to mention, this company's history with Elon Musk, who is also running XAI, a competitor to OpenAI, ChatGPT, which is the Grok chatbot. All of those incidents, all of those more or less disagreement is not yet priced into this. As OpenAI actually negotiated and they've actually reconciled with Elon Musk, we can't actually know that for now. Will Elon Musk be going to the courts to stop this IPO if those issues have not been resolved? A whole lot of things. Or will Elon Musk actually wait for OpenAI to go on IPO and actually files a class action suit? That's also a risk factor, and that's what investors actually need to watch out for. Now, when it comes to the valuation, which is actually more or less like a bonus. So if you have watched this video to this point, just like I said at the beginning, this episode and every other episode is proudly presented by StockerTeam.com, the platform for retail investors to get much more education, much more coaching and guidance to do due diligence on how to build long-term and sustainable portfolio. So please give this video a like, and also look into joining us on Stocker Team as a premium member. So I'm going to be talking about the last part, which is very, very key, is the valuation at close to about 1 trillion as reported. Is this really sustainable? Is this realistic? Is this something that is a red flag? I will be comparing OpenAI with a company that is not necessarily directly competing with OpenAI, but might actually give us an idea of why this valuation might actually be overstretched or actually reasonable. Stay with me. Let's jump right in. So before we actually bring this to a wrap, it's always very, very important to see which company is actually in the market, especially in the big tech, mega tech, and AI sector that is actually comparable to OpenAI. There's no direct software only AI company that is not enterprise apart from Palantir. So Palantir does not necessarily or even compete with OpenAI at all. As a matter of fact, Palantir is a customer to OpenAI. So because Palantir actually allows OpenAI's large language model, like ChatGPT itself and every other model that they have, to actually run on the Palantir ontology, Palantir AIP, and Foundry. So we can't even compare OpenAI with Palantir. The only company that we can perhaps compare OpenAI with will be NVIDIA, none other than NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA is around $5 trillion as at yesterday, the 29th of October 2025. Now, if OpenAI is coming into the market with the valuation nearing about 1 trillion, you could actually see that it's not necessarily overstretched. If you look at the investment that OpenAI has actually gathered from a whole lot of its backers, from NVIDIA itself, from Microsoft, from SoftBank, you could actually see that a 1 trillion valuation might not be bad, might not be too overstretched. The only concern is the cost of running this business. If NVIDIA is getting close to about maybe 40% margin on its chips, what exactly is the margin for OpenAI? So these are the things that you need to look out for, and perhaps you could actually make up your mind as to when you actually want to get involved on this IPO, or you actually want to wait it out to see what will happen. And that's why we actually started StockerTeam.com for retail investors to get much more coaching, much more guidance. So the aim of StockerTeam.com really is to really give retail investors that opportunity to do deep dive research, to get a whole lot of briefing on what exactly is going on in the global financial markets, how to position their portfolio, how to actually pick winning stocks, how to actually have that mindset to be able to make sure you are not just buying tickers, you are not just buying anything you see out there in the market. You are able to do your deep dive research, you are able to get all the news, all the information that you need. You actually also educate yourself every day as an investor, because at the end of the day, you are actually not what you buy, you are actually what you know in the financial markets. Your knowledge base, your due diligence, your thoroughness to be able to invest your time and capacity to improve on what you know and how you know it, and how to actually tweak your model of investing. So you can join us as a premium member. The link is actually there. For you to be a member, you can become a member today. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Are you going to be buying the OpenAI IPO. Is this something you are looking out for? This is going to be one in a lifetime IPO. Perhaps we might not actually see any other IPO that will actually beat this maybe in the next 1 decade. Maybe we have another technology that is going to be much more revolutionary than AI, but this is going to be the once in a lifetime IPO, and we are going to be looking forward to it, and will provide much more guidance. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Before we go, always make sure you do your due diligence and consult your financial advisor before making any decision. Thank you so much. Take care and bye-bye.